at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. It's Thursday, July 25th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. As always, your needy Muslim buddy, your MBFF. On Twitter, on Facebook, I'm there. Thursday, even though it's Thursday, it's still Mueller Thursday. A lot to unpack. Just listen to Michelangelo Signorelli talk about the issue. There's a lot we're going to cover on the show today about it and try to make the focus of something which I think says so much about where the GOP is now under Donald Trump. But first, the magic number, 467. What is that number? You know it. In your heart, you know what that number is. 467 days until Judgment Day. 467 days until November 3rd, 2020. Even if we impeach Trump and he is somehow removed in the Senate, we still have an election November 3rd, 2020. It'll still be a Republican who we have to defeat. There'll still be a Senate we need to take control of and a House we must retain. So 467 days to the most important election of our lives. Period. Of our lives. Period. November 3rd, 2020. That's the key to what's going on for our future, your kids' future, grandchildren, friends' future, everybody. So Mueller Thursday, I want to highlight a couple of things and make an important point, I think, how the GOP has gone from the party of American patriots to the party of Trump patriots, who are just focused on loyalty to Donald Trump and not the United States of America anymore. And that's their priority. But first, Colbert last night had a really funny thing about what Democrats expected from Robert Mueller and what Robert Mueller actually delivered. And Robert Mueller's choice of using big words when I'm telling you smaller words are much more effective. They're better for everyone because no one has to go like, what does that mean? I got to Google that. How do you spell it? Doesn't happen. So here's Colbert last night. Clip number 1, please.
One goal for the Democrats was to get Mueller to make clear that Trump's claim that he was exonerated was not true.
The report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Can you explain in plain terms what that finding means so the American people can understand it?
Well, the finding indicates that the president was not exculpated for the acts that he allegedly committed.
Come on! Come on! Exculpated? Did you not hear the guy say, so the American people can understand it? Did your granddaughter give you a word of the day calendar? Come on! Exculpated. Exculpated, just use America talk. By which I mean emojis, orange, handcuffs. We need simple slogans. You know, Nike, just do it. Wheaties, breakfast of champions. Trump, the worst a man can get.
Trump, the worst a man can get. And he's right. Small words. Winston Churchill famously said, short words are best. Short words. That's small words. They convey things. Exculpatory. I didn't even play that when I played the clip yesterday. I cut that out because that's a challenging legal word and it doesn't help anybody. So I'm glad he made that. So there's 2 points. As we talked about yesterday, we had 2 different hearings yesterday. One in the House Judiciary just on obstruction. Second one, House Intel on Russian interference. To me, the second hearings, which I wish were on separate days. I wish we just had the Russian interference on just one day, those hearings, and that would have made massive headlines in a much more convincing way. Because for those who think Robert Mueller didn't do a good job, it's because they didn't read the report. He brought the report to life. He didn't do a great job. He's not an actor. He didn't, Denzel Washington it, folks. He didn't nail it like an actor and go, oh, and start crying and pat his forehead and take a break and say scene at some point. No, he answered questions like a lawyer. And also, since the Democrats asked questions in a leading manner, when they realized that Robert Mueller had not memorized his 400-plus page report, which who would have? And leading questions are simply ones where I say all the facts, and at the end I go, correct? And Mueller goes, yes. That's not a great soundbite. You're watching a Democrat go, isn't it true that the president blah, 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 blah? Isn't that correct? And Mueller goes, yes, that's correct. So that was part of it. Still, the facts are the facts. First and foremost, just the one takeaway from the first hearing is that Donald Trump is a liar, which we know, but he's a liar all the time. He was not exonerated. Bill Barr is also a liar. So you've got Trump and his AG, who's not really an attorney general, he's Trump's lawyer, are liars. And why? Because both Bill Barr and Trump, of course, a million times said he's been exonerated. And here's just Gerald Nadler, and I cut out the exculpatory word part. Clip number 2, please.
You wrote, quote, if we had confidence after a thorough investigation of the facts that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state. Based on the facts and the applicable legal standards, however, we are unable to reach that judgment, close quote. Now, does that say there was no obstruction?
No.
So the report did not conclude that he did not commit obstruction of justice. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what about total exoneration? Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Now, in fact, your report expressly states that it does not exonerate the president.
It does.
And your investigation actually found, quote, multiple acts by the president that were capable of exerting undue influence over law enforcement investigations, including the Russian interference and obstruction investigations. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there you go. I mean, that's just clear. Anyone who says to you in the Trump world, or you're at work and someone goes, Trump's exonerated, they're uninformed or they're a liar. Those are the only options. They could be both. They could be an uninformed liar, put it together, but they're clearly uninformed. And that's good. So that's done. And I'm hoping the cloud of criminality returns to hang over Trump because he freaks out. Yesterday, he was freaking out all morning before the testimony, and today's doing a victory lap. Unless something changes, he'll continue to do that victory lap. But we also got a glimpse yesterday of what happens if Speaker Pelosi allows an impeachment inquiry. Every day there's a big hearing, Trump will be freaking out. He won't be talking about the economy. He won't be demonizing black and brown people. He'll be focused on Trump. That's all he ever focused on. So you've got that. That's the good thing. But to me, as I said, the second hearings, the ones about Russian interference, were so much more important. They were important for our nation. And that illegal distinction about obstruction of justice or witness tampering, we can have a debate about that. Did it fulfill the elements or not? An attack on our nation by the Russian military is very clear. And if you're on the side of defending Russia or you're on the side of making light of that attack, you're not on the side of the United States of America. And I think it's a great dividing line. It could not be more clear. It'd be like after Pearl Harbor saying, the Japanese attack really wasn't that bad. There were still a few other boats we had. It'd be exactly that. So I love the fact we have this great dividing line. We have a dividing line, very bright line here. Whose side are you on? Are you on Trump's or are you on the United States of America? Are you an American patriot or a Trump patriot? And so I want to go through just a few clips from that and then play some showing you the evolution of the Republican Party over decades. How it went from a party that I disagreed with, but they were patriots. They were American patriots to now Trump patriots. It's far different. So as again, a reminder to me, this is the most important part of the volume 2 of the report of Robert Mueller, which focused on Russian interference. It says, quote, the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and work to secure that outcome. And that the campaign, being the Trump campaign, expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts. And here's Adam Schiff in his opening statement, just summing this up. And I think this 1 minute does so much great work. Clip number 7 we'll jump down to.
Your report, for those who have taken the time to study it, is methodical and it is devastating. For it tells the story of a foreign adversary's sweeping and systematic intervention in a close U.S. presidential election. That should be enough to deserve the attention of every American, as you well point out. But your report tells another story as well. For the story of the 2016 election is also a story about disloyalty to country, about greed, and about lies. Your investigation determined that the Trump campaign, including Donald Trump himself, knew that a foreign power was intervening in our election and welcomed it, built Russian meddling into their strategy, and used it. Disloyalty to country. Those are strong words, but how else are we to describe a presidential campaign which did not inform the authorities of a foreign offer of dirt on their opponent, which did not publicly shun it or turn it away, but which instead invited it, encouraged it, and made full use of it?
Disloyalty to country. It sums it up so well. As I keep saying, they're no longer American patriots. They are Trump patriots, in that their patriotism, their loyalty, their love is for Donald Trump. And whatever Trump says, they will go along with. It's not about Republican dogma any longer. They used to be about free trade. Now he's all tariffs. They're all on board with that. And we'll go through how the Republican Party at one point, for decades, viewed the Soviet Union and then Russia. And then how Trump, he flipped that script, and they're fine with it because they're fine with anything this man does. And that's not American patriotism. That is Trump patriotism. And I'll play just a couple more clips from yesterday. I thought they were so important. Here's Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut making the point that the Russian attack was two-pronged. One was through social media, spending millions of dollars, and two, the hack and dump, which was the hacking by the Russian military, and it was in the indictment by Robert Mueller, a Russian military attack by members of the GRU unit of the Russian military on state and board elections, on the DNC, and the like. So let's hear first. We're going to jump down actually to clip number 9. Jim Himes, please.
The second operation in the Russian attack was a scheme, what we call the hack and dump, to steal and release hundreds of thousands of emails from the Democratic Party.
Actually, we're going to go to clip 8.
The Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome. Do I have that statement right?
I believe so.
Director Mueller, this attack on our democracy involved, as you said, two operations. First, a social media disinformation campaign. This was a targeted campaign to spread false information on places like Twitter and Facebook. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Facebook estimated, as per your report, that the Russian fake images reached 126 million people. Is that correct?
I believe that's the sum that we record.
Director, who did the Russian social media campaign ultimately intend to benefit? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
The Russians attacked to help Donald Trump in prong number 1. Prong number 2, the hack and dump. Who did they try to help? Let's hear that first clip we had played.
The Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome. Do I have that statement right?
I believe so.
We'll do the other shorter clip.
The second operation in the Russian attack was a scheme, what we call the hack and dump, to steal and release hundreds of thousands of emails from the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign. Is that a fair summary?
That is.
Mr. Mueller, which presidential candidate was Russia's hacking and dumping operation designed to benefit? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?
Mr. Trump.
So it's all about Mr. Trump. All about helping Donald Trump. And here's one last clip I want to play. Adam Schiff summing up about stolen data, stolen information. Again, this was proven stolen, given to WikiLeaks, and then released, and Trump made the most of it. And here is, if you're going to listen to nothing else, and I took the transcript today and tweeted this passage out. To me, this is one of the most important parts. Clip number 10.
Russia committed federal crimes in order to help Donald Trump?
When you're talking about the computer crimes charged in our case, absolutely.
The Trump campaign officials built their strategy, their messaging strategy around those stolen documents?
Generally, that's true.
And then they lied to cover it up?
Generally, that's true.
Generally, that's true. A lot of lying going on by Trump. What a contrast to what the Republican Party had stood for decades ago when it dealt with the Soviet Union and Russia. Do you think Ronald Reagan would have accepted the help of Russia? If they said an email to Ronald Reagan's son or anyone on the campaign, I've got dirt for you to go against your opponent, Walter Mondale. What do you think Ronald Reagan would have done? What do you think John McCain would have done? What do you think George Herbert Walker Bush, former CIA director, would have done? What do you think Mitt Romney would have done? Well, we have some answers, in fact. First, here is Ronald Reagan in 1983 talking about the Soviet Union and what they represent. Here's clip number 3.
Some would have us accept them at their word. and accommodate ourselves to their aggressive impulses. But if history teaches anything, it teaches that simple-minded appeasement or wishful thinking about our adversaries is folly. It means the betrayal of our past, the squandering of our freedom. So I urge you to speak out against those who would place the United States in a position of military and moral inferiority, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
There's Ronald Reagan talking about the Soviet Union, obviously Russia, being a struggle between good and evil. They are an evil empire. That was the Republican Party. I may have disagreed with Ronald Reagan on countless policies, but he was a patriot, an American patriot. Then here's John McCain in 2007 talking about Vladimir Putin. And listen how he describes Vladimir Putin in Russia. Clip number 4.
Putin is causing us trouble in many parts of the world because he's acting in what he perceives as his country's national interest, no matter how close and the friendship is between himself and President Bush. I looked into Putin's eyes, I saw 3 letters, a K, a G, and a B.
So Meghan McCain gets an email from Russia saying, this is part of Russia and its government's help of your father's campaign. Does Meghan McCain or any McCain go to their father and say, this is great, let's have this meeting? Of course not. John McCain would have called the FBI. Ronald Reagan would have at least said no. He probably would have called the FBI. George Herbert Walker Bush would have done that. And here's Mitt Romney in 2012 as a candidate, the Republican nominee at this time, against Barack Obama, who was then the incumbent, talking about Russia being the number one geopolitical threat to our nation and to the world in his view. Here's clip number 5.
We go to the United Nations looking for ways to stop them. When Assad, for instance, is murdering his own people, we go to the United Nations, and who is it that always stands up for the world's worst actors? It is always Russia, typically with China alongside. And so in terms of a geopolitical foe, a nation that's on the Security Council, that has the heft of the Security Council, and is, of course, a massive nuclear power, Russia is the geopolitical foe.
There's Mitt Romney. And what has happened? Where have we gone? We've gone from Ronald Reagan, that they were an evil empire. It's a good fight between good and evil, literally between good and evil. George Herbert Walker Bush, the next president, had been CIA director. He clearly subscribed to this philosophy. You went to John McCain, who says, I look in the eyes of Putin, who's only concerned about his national interests, and I see KGB, I see a spy master. Mitt Romney, 2012, making it very clear, Russia is the number one geopolitical threat to this country, siding with the worst actors in this nation. You heard him say that. And what do we get to by 2016? Donald Trump, first his son is having a meeting, which we all know he knew about, in Trump Tower, about Russia sending things as part of Russia and its government's help of your father. A few weeks later, there's Donald Trump saying, Russia, are you listening? Can any of you picture Ronald Reagan saying, Russia, are you listening? Can you picture John McCain or Mitt Romney saying, Russia, are you listening? Of course not. They're patriots. Of course you can. And then it gets the worst. After all of this, last July, just about a week after Donald Trump learned about the indictment by Robert Mueller of 13 military officers in the Russian military for hacking our elections, in detail, great detail, including saying in that complaint, that indictment, that the day Donald Trump in July 2016 said, Russia, are you listening? Russia was. And they attacked for the first time Hillary Clinton's personal emails. They thought they were working together. There's no doubt Russia thought Trump was part of their conspiracy. And then Donald Trump is there on the world stage last year after knowing all of this, after all the intelligence agencies say Russia, this is what they've done. After you hear Mitt Romney say the greatest geopolitical foe appeals to the worst, supports the worst actors. John McCain saying KGB master is Vladimir Putin. After Ronald Reagan, who at one time was the greatest Republican in the view of the Republicans. And what does Donald Trump say standing next to Vladimir Putin when asked about this? Let's hear clip number 6. Listen very carefully.
Would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
All I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer.
It's an incredible offer. The spy master, Putin, the man who leads a country, our leading geopolitical foe in the world, wants to help you, and you're an idiot, and you're saying yes? Or, because no one can make sense of that. Is Donald Trump compromised? Are they blackmailing him? Is he the most easily manipulated moron in the world? Or is it all three? It could be all of the above. It really could be. I can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is now that 90% of the GOP, and that's the latest polls, support Trump, that 90%, they are not American patriots. They are Trump patriots. They are patriotic to Donald Trump. They will cheer when he says racist stuff. They have no problem with that. They will cheer as he mocks a woman, like when Dr. Christine Ford had testified, and then he made fun of her in front of his crowd, and they cheered that. They will cheer anything he says. They will do anything he says. Now, they're a small percentage of this country. Let's not lose track. I mean, there's a poll today, Fox News poll, 56% of all voters said telling a person of color to go back to your home is racist. 56%. What percentage of Americans did not think it was racist? Only 20%. That's really Trump's base right there. That's 20% of white supremacists. That's really, when it comes down to it, 20%. And when you broke it down, Republicans, only 21% of Republicans overall thought it was racist. The rest were fine with it. In fact, 45% of Republicans said they were completely fine with it. 30% said it depends on the setting in which it's said, if it's racist or not. So if you're at a Trump rally surrounded by white people, it's okay. That's what they're saying. This is where the GOP is. So, all right, so let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to have Congressman Joe Kennedy for a few minutes, and we're going to take some calls from you. We're going to have a lot of time for phone calls. Be right back after this quick break. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our